Alright then guys, so we're now moving into the more advanced topics on the Cisco ASA, and the next one that we're going to be covering is security context. But a bit of a disclaimer and a bit of bad news for you guys who've been using the ASA V up until now. I just have to let you know that the ASA V doesn't support security context. Luckily for us, we have a different version of ASA which I'll be using from now on, which means I'll have to rebuild the topology. So let me give you a bit of background about security context. Now, this is where you can partition a single ASA into multiple devices, and where each context acts as an independent device with its own security policies, its own ACLs, its own interfaces, its own administrators, etc. Now, this is great if you're a large enterprise and want to keep departments completely separate, or if you work for an ISP looking to provide different services to customers, or in any situation really where you need more than one ASA but maybe your organization doesn't have the budget to purchase more equipment, then you should be using a security context. There are three different types of contexts that can be created in the ASA. The first is the system context, which is also known as the default context. And this is where we will allocate the interfaces for all the other contexts. Now, we can only connect to the system context from the console because there are no interfaces connected to the system context. Next up, we have the admin context, where if you convert from single mode to multiple mode, then this is called the admin context, and it's created automatically. And you could use it like any other context, but the admin context has access to the system and all other contexts. So you probably want to restrict access to the admin context. And then you have the normal context. These are the virtual devices that the system context is allocated resources to. They must be assigned a name and don't have the ability to access other contexts. So they're totally separate from every other context. So let's have a look at the topology that we're going to be using. As I said, I've kind of rejigged up the topology just to get things moving. And I'll probably make this into two sections, where the first section I'll be configuring like all the customer, the VLANs, the separation, the .1 queue, and then in the second part I'll be doing like the command line and the ASDM configuration, where we actually get to see the contexts. So if you only want to see that ASA part, I suggest that you jump onto part 2, but for now I'm going to jump onto these devices and start configuring the IP addressing. So the first ones that I'm going to open up are I've got the DMZ, this middle switch, which is in the DMZ area, and also the router code CLI firewall. So let's start with the DMZ. I'll call this the DMZ router. I'll probably put the IP addressing here on the screen so that we can see what we're going to be working with. So on DMZ GI01, we need to make that a sub interface. Now, to make a sub interface, we need to make sure that the main interface is up. So I'll no shut the main interface, and I'm going to make the route across to customer 1 in VLAN 100, and the one going across to customer 2 will be in VLAN 200. Also, I don't like these interruptions, so let me just get rid of that. All right, let's start with the sub-interface configuration. Interface G0/1.100, enter. We're going to call the encapsulation is going to be .1Q in VLAN 100, and the IP address is going to be 10.1.1.10 on a /24. And for interface G0/1.200, you could up arrow a couple of times and just change things. So encapsulation is going to be in VLAN 200, and the IP address with 10.1.1, 10.1.2.10. Guys, I have a request from you. If you're enjoying the free content, I'm looking to increase my subscriber count to 4,000 subscribers by June. But I can only do that if you give me the Play Special. Do you want to know what the Play Special is? Press like and subscribe. Okay, back to the video. So I'm going to have to get reachability across the customer one. Now I could do this by static routing or with a routing protocol. I will use a routing protocol, and I'll use two different routing protocols for the two different customers. So the first one, I'm going to use OSPF1 for, and let me give it a router ID of 4.4.4.4, only because it's the fourth device in the line. So I've got customer 1, customer 2, the switch is going to be transparent, then it's going to be the firewall, which would be 3.3.3.3, and the DMZ is 4.4.4.4. I'm going to give it a network of 10.1.1.0 on a /24 in area 0. That should be it. And then to advertise the other network, router EIGRP100, we need to make sure we say no auto summary, and it's going to be the other network, which is 10.1.2.0 on a /24. Alright, that's it for the DMZ router, I think. Now let's go over to the switch. I need to look at the diagram again. Going to be GI03 and GI01. They're going to be trunk ports. So if I jump onto the switch, make sure there's no VLANs already created. Show VLAN brief. No, so conf T. I'm going to leave the switch name. If I say interface range G0/1, G0/3, and if I say switch port mode trunk, okay, that's no problem. So I say switch port trunk encapsulation is .1Q, and I say switch port trunk allowed VLANs are 1, 100 and 200, which are our VLANs, and then we say switch port mode trunk. Do show interface trunk. Okay. Do show VLAN brief. Let's see if it created those VLANs. It did not. So I need to now just create those VLANs. If I say VLAN 100, exit out of that, and also VLAN 200, exit out of this. Do show VLAN brief. Okay. Let's save that configuration. I think that's all that we need for the switch. Now we need to jump over to the customer, and the switch is on the other side. So let me just open up those. So these customer 1 R2, customer 2 R2, and this switch. Let's just open those up. All right, so we've got those open, and customer 1. So it has an IP address of 192.168.10.10, which I will keep. And hopefully the IP address is on customer 2 as well, which it is. Let's see if we have that configuration on the switch. Show interface trunk. Alright, so it looks like this configuration has already been done, but let me show you what I would be doing. So the first thing, for this interface going to the ASA, that should be a trunk port. So GI00 should be a trunk port. Then GI01 should be an access port in VLAN 10, and GI02 should be an access port in VLAN 20. So if I was doing that, interface GI00, switch port trunk encapsulation is .1Q, and switch port trunk allowed VLAN is 10 and 20. Make that a trunk, switch port mode trunk. That's the first part. Then for interface GI01, this is switch port mode access and switch port access VLAN 10. And for GI02, switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 20. And then we just need to create those VLANs. So VLAN 10, exit, and VLAN 20, exit. Let's look at those VLANs. So first we say do show VLAN brief. Yeah. And also look at the trunk. Do show interface trunk. And that's it for the switch configuration. I will probably do the ASDM switch configurations in the background, but because we're going to do the CLI portion first, I think it's best to probably just move on and look at the context configuration on the CLI of our first firewall. So I will see you in part 2.